This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Robbie, and thank you, Claire, for organising this live Q&A today with Robbie McRae, CEO of Caracal Gold. I'm sure everyone knows who I am, Mark Fairbairn from Stockbox, and I'm going to be just hosting the Q&A today and fielding your questions to Robbie. There have been over 20 questions submitted in advance of this Q&A, and we'll ask those questions first. And then, as I say, the Telegram admin will open the floor to anyone here to unmute their mic and ask any questions they have live. Or you can just simply type your question in the main Telegram sort of chat box, and we'll pick them up there as well. As always, with any director or CEO, they are, of course, bound by the rules of the London Stock Exchange, but this Q&A is for you, the shareholders, and I'm sure Robbie will do his very best to answer in as much detail as he can all your questions. So, Robbie, thank you very much for joining us. I was just saying before you joined, the last time that we spoke was actually at the Mines and Money Connect event in London back in April the 25th, that event was. So it's been quite a while since we've spoken, but it's great to have you on today. And of course, there's been a large operational update today from the company. So I don't know if we wanted to start very quickly on a couple of things I picked up from there. First of all, the financing. Of course, this is a big issue or element that's going on with the company at the moment, and it's relying on this prospectus, isn't it? And you've already submitted the prospectus, and you're sort of waiting approval from the FCA. Do you want to just update us on the financing situation to kick us off?
Yeah, sure, Mark. Thanks to everybody who's on the call. Yeah, it has been a while since we spoke, Mark. It's a bit of a frustrating time for the company and all the stakeholders. Lots and lots of work going on in the background. But, once we get through this phase, hopefully we can talk a lot more because there'll be all action. So thanks for that. Yeah, the financing is the financing is not dependent on the prospectus. The prospectus is part of what we're working on the admin and the financing side. But the biggest component of the financing that we're working on now is the royalty deal. Which will make up the majority of the funding for the Kilimapesa expansion, and that's the funding that replaces the Orca, the OSIM funding, which didn't materialize in January. So that's the main component of the funding. We have submitted a prospectus to the FCA for approval that deals with a number of things. Deals with a couple of shares which have to be issued under the prospectus, and it also gives us the option, if we need, to raise some equity alongside the royalty funding. So it opens up an option for us.
Okay, excellent. And it's royalty funding, you say. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for a small company like ourselves, and a company where we're financing not an exploration project, and we're not looking to fund a feasibility study or anything, we're looking to fund an expansion. So we have the ability to attract non-dilutive funding. That was the whole basis, that the deal that we put together with OSIM and with Valoro, all of the funding coming in was non-dilutive. Royalty funding is the same. They advance us some money. We use the money to build the expansion, and they are paid through a royalty over the life of mine. So it's slightly different to OSIM. OSIM was just a pure prepaid, but it's also non-dilutive, and it's linked to production out of the mine. So it funds the expansion, and then we pay them back. So it's non-dilutive for the shareholders, and obviously that's first price. I'm a shareholder and got the best interest of the shareholders at heart and my own. So non-dilutive funding for us would be the best result.
Indeed, it would, and the shareholders would certainly appreciate any non-dilutive funding. Are you hoping to get that sorted in the near term, Robbie?
Yeah, these processes are not simple, Mark. and they take time, and they're very process driven. I'm not sure if all of everybody involved understands, when a group like OSIM pull out for what we consider to be an issue that they pulled out because they couldn't take security over the mining license in Kenya, which is it's just something that doesn't happen in almost any country in the world. So for us, it was a very strange reason to pull out of the funding. When we started to talk to new funders, we weren't even starting to talk to them just to talk about the project. It took us a long time just to convince them that that there wasn't a flaw with our project. That all the conversations opened up. Why did OSIM pull out? And then people wanted to run around and investigate that on their own. So we've come a hell of a long way in a relatively short period of time, and I fully appreciate. It's been a long time for the shareholders and the stakeholders, and it's been an equally long time for us managing the process. We want to get this funding locked in and done as fast as we can. On not the counter to that, what we have to make sure this time is that we get it done, and we secure it, and we move forward on the expansion. So we're being meticulous. We're being very, very careful, taking a little bit longer on each step to make sure that it's done properly, so that we don't have any nasty surprises. So that's the one reason. And we've made tremendous progress. You go through a very detailed on any of these financings, whether it's a debt financing, a project financing, a royalty type financing, or a capital raise. You've got to go through a detailed technical due diligence. You've got to go through a legal due diligence. You've got to go through a financial due diligence. You have to have tax people in structuring tax, and you're starting to deal with North American entities. We're a British company with an asset in Kenya, so there's a lot of tax input which has to come into it. You're dealing with lawyers across multiple jurisdictions, but we're in the final documentation phase now, and the final documentation phase. After that, we close out the security and the conditions precedents, and then we draw down the money. So, we've worked very hard to get to where we are, and we're close to getting it finalized.
Okay. Well, just a couple of questions that I see have popped up just as we're talking about the funding here. The first one is Filoro involved with the potential financing, as they were the other partners with OSIM, but also Orca, are they involved as well?
We've got options, Mark, and the board are considering the options. The royalty funding, the capital number to build the expansion hasn't changed. I mean, I think our long shareholders will know we were looking to raise $10.5 million previously from OSIM, and then Orca were coming in alongside them for $3 million. The number hasn't changed. So we are under the new financing. The royalty company is coming in for the largest component, as OSIM were, and we're looking for between $3 and $4 million to come in alongside them. We've got options. We have a term sheet from Orca, which we announced in January. They're still very much at the table. I talk to Orca once every fortnight. They're very supportive. They're still there. So that's there. Filoro, we've got a very good working relationship with the Filoro guys. They're still there. But all of these other fundings are dependent on the royalty funding being finalized first. Nobody wants to put their money in until they know that the full expansion project is fully funded. So we've got the term sheets, but they're all dependent on the major component of the funding coming in. So in a long way, Orca is still at the table, Filoro is still at the table, and they provide us with options.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. The other thing, of course, it was announced before, but summarized today in the update that came out today, was, of course, the board composition and a few changes there on the board. Is this something to be concerned about? There's a fair few seats changing hands, Robbie, and you say you're actively now looking for new non-exec directors. You provide any more sort of insight onto these changes at board level?
Yeah, I mean, Simon obviously joined the board after the previous chair, Simon left, and he's working extremely hard around the clock to make things happen. His experience in mining and his experience in the capital markets and in running listed companies in London is invaluable to me. He's an absolute rock, and is adding a tremendous amount of value. With Gerard and the ambassador. Ambassador Dan Kazungu stepping down from their roles as non-executive directors. That really is being driven by the people who are going to put a lot of money into the company are going to be looking to have board representation. And Ambassador Kazungu's contract came to an end, and it was a logical thing for him to step down. That being said, he's working very, very closely with me. He's really driving the process in Tanzania for the company to a large degree. So not at all lost to the company, and I think he's in a far more valuable position. And yeah, I mean, as the other board changes, I mean, the Rian, Gerard, and Ambassador Dan stepping down were all part of our strategy. We're all part of our program for them to step aside and to make place for potential financiers, for potential board members to come in from the financier side. Rachel stepped down. Just she's a busy lady, and she's got a substantial ESG business in West Africa, and she was battling to find the time to give Caracal enough time. So she stepped down from her position, and yeah, we're looking for another non-exec director to replace her. So no, there's nothing to worry about. It's process driven, and the board will I'm sure will go back to being 5 members, and probably representatives from the financiers taking up those 2 places. So there's nothing to worry about. It's all in process and all under control.
Okay. Well, I wonder if we can sort of get an update now from Kilimapesa and, of course, the Kenyan operations there. From the news today, confirmation that the company sold 1,645 ounces of gold at an average price of $1,933 an ounce. So I know obviously you are targeting that 2,000, that magic 2,000 a month as soon as possible, I believe. But do you want to just give us a bit of an update on the quarter for Kilimapesa there?
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the Q2 results. I'm very proud of what the team did on site. Obviously, Q1 was very tough. We had a good closeout to Q1, and it fed through, and it continued through Q2. The focus was really on the milling plant and the high grade zone in the ore body. So it's most of the gold that was produced out of those areas. Very pleased with April. Very pleased with May. June could have been better. We really ran the mill very, very hard during March, April, and May, so to get ourselves into a good, stable cash position, and we lost quite a lot of time on the mill during June. We subsequently reinvested quite a lot of money into the mill during July to make sure, and it was covered in some of our weekly updates and RNSs that we took the mill offline for I think 2 weeks during July to fully refurbish it and get it up to speed. So we're looking forward to a good Q3. The guys are hitting the numbers. Kilimapesa is very comfortable at the levels that we're producing. We're making money, and things are stable. Gold price was very good to us during the quarter. I mean, $1,933. We run all of our numbers about $200 lower than that, so that's very comfortable. All-in sustaining costs, we were under 1,200, but June did hurt a little bit, and we went up over 1,200 because of June. But again, we know exactly what happened, why. So very comfortable with the operation, and yeah, very close to the targeted 1,800 for the quarter. So it was a good quarter financially. I'd love to see the exploration rigs turning again. That's quite a big thing for us after the financing is done. The exploration over the last 2 quarters has been very limited, so we big focus for us going forward, and nice to start announcing some exploration results and updates on exploration during the quarters. Mining very much on plan. The guys are doing really well. Very good understanding. The high grade zone is delivering well. We're understanding it very well. And again, once we've got some additional funding in the bank and we can get the drill rigs onto those high grade zones, it'll be very exciting. The underground is still closed. We need some capital to open up the underground, but the open cast is supporting the mine very well. So exploration and mining, and then processing. The focus during the quarter was really on the milling plant, and we got good tonnage through the milling plant. Good grade through the milling plant. We could have put more tons through the heap leach. The heap leach a little bit neglected, I must say during the quarter. We like to have that tonnage up around 30,000 tons a month as well. But now that we've got a good quarter behind us, we've got the cash in the bank from that quarter, and as recent as this afternoon, we were discussing with the technical team how we ramp up the tonnage on the heap leach to where it should be at around 30,000 tons for next quarter, but don't compromise and don't reduce the tonnage on the milling plant, which is generating the money for us. So we've got some good opportunities. We've done really well during the quarter, but there are areas where we can improve, and we're certainly focusing on that. Obviously, during the quarter as well, we had small things, not big things. Standby power coming back to site and improving the availability. We commissioned the additional CIL tank, which started to increase and up our recoveries. We had quite a lot of additional mining equipment delivered, and Q2 was a bit quiet on that side. Q3, I think, will also be quiet. We're just going to keep running, doing what we're doing. But once this funding is secured, then a lot more exciting news with the progress on the expansion and lots of new equipment being delivered to site. So overall, a really good quarter out of Kilimapesa. The ESG health and safety side, the numbers speak for themselves. We had no major reportable events during the quarter, which was great. It's the operation is running well. I'm very proud of the team.
Excellent. Good to hear, Robbie. Very good to hear. I see a question's come in just on the back of this update on Kilimapesa. It's about the heap leach that you are building. I think some photos have been put out on Twitter. Is this the new big pad? And if so, when are you looking to have this operational?
Yeah, we secured the ground, and we got with any expansion like this, you go through a process. You have to identify where you want to build the expansion. You have to do the engineering. You then have to secure the ground, get the environmental impact assessment and the environmental management plans done. You have to then submit to the Ministry of Mines for expansion approval, submit to the Ministry of Environment, get their approval. And once you've got all of that, you can start moving. So we had those in place already as part of the process from late last year, early this year. We broke ground on the heap leach expansion pad sometime during Q1. I don't remember the exact dates. I'm sorry, guys, but we broke ground on it. And we're ready to start loading tonnage. And hence one of the reasons that I said, there's during this quarter from now. Going forward during this quarter, one of the real opportunities that we've got is to push the tonnage on the heap leach plant. We've had limited crushing capacity, which has been a limitation on us. The heap leach requires significantly more crushing capacity than what we've got at the moment. So we have to be really smart with how we crush and that sort of side of things. But we've got a plan in place. And it's the heap leach, the area where we actually construct the heaps. We've expanded. We've got more than enough space. So an opportunity for us during the rest of this quarter and the rest of the year.
Okay. And when it comes to the underground mining, Robbie, is that on hold at the moment, pending the funding?
Yeah, we will go back underground. The underground mining, towards the end of last year, we spent a lot of money on pre-development, but in order to deliver the higher tonnage out of the underground, we requires quite a lot of it's significant capital expenditure that needs to be made. So yes, once the funding is in place, we'll potentially go back underground again. The open pit is delivering very, very well. And the open pit is where the bulk of the tonnage will come from. So the current plan, yes, the underground will be reopened again. The mining engineers might have a closer look at that. And if the open cast continues to perform as well as it is, and we don't have to allocate that capital, it's something that we'll look at. But it's great to have it's great that the open cast is performing so well that we can have a look at those opportunities. But the underground does deliver high-grade, valuable tons for us for the mill.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I can get going on some of the pre-submitted questions because these were questions that came in live, but I think we've covered a few of the first ones here. We've covered what stage you are with the funding there for Kilimapesa, and also that the prospectus has been submitted to the FCA. The Orca 4 million facility is still in play, isn't it, Robbie, I think from our previous discussion?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So let's move on to another question. And so the rationale on the joint venture on Tanzania, if we're close to securing funding on Kilimapesa, should be less than a year away from full production. So I think the question is, what is the rationale of a joint venture on TZN?
It was something that came not out of the blue. One of the potential funding partners that we were talking to took a real liking to the Tanzanian project and put what we believed is a very good proposal in front of us for the development of the Tanzanian asset. And I have to take it to my board and get them to consider it. And if we proceed on it, it will deliver. It'll be a really good deal for the company. These guys will develop the mine using their own money. The deal that I believe we'll get out of them, if everything keeps going according to plan and what's been discussed, creates a lot of value for us. It'll be a second operation built with somebody else's money in Tanzania, with lots and lots of nice ounces accruing to us. So yeah, it was something that we hadn't. It wasn't part of our strategy. Our strategy, as per the person's question, was secure the funding for Kilimapesa, for the Kilimapesa expansion, continue to do some work in Tanzania, build Kilimapesa, and then focus on Tanzania. But this is a tremendous value add opportunity for us, and it gets us a strong foothold. We'll have a producing mine in Tanzania to look around and look for additional opportunities. So I'm very excited about the opportunity in Tanzania, and we're working hard on it.
What have you got a timeline in mind? What timeline do you see for the potential joint venture and a structure? Can you discuss that at this point?
It's quite sensitive, Mark. I don't want to put stuff out into the market that
Sure.
Our potential that might put our potential.
Sure.
That might but soon. It's not long before we can start talking about that.
Okay, that's not a problem. I see another question on Tanzania. Does the 280 square kilometers cover previous licenses owned by Manas Resources?
So I'm not an expert on the full history of TIAX, but I have seen Manas in some of the history and the documentation. So I believe Manas tried to do a deal over the TIAX assets a couple of years ago first. So yes, I mean we've done a deal we've done a deal with TIAX, which is the same company that Manas was trying to do the deal with. Whether we did the deal over exactly the same licenses, I'm really not sure. But yeah, I know Manas were talking to TIAX, did a deal with them, and I believe they had a stumbling block with the Tanzanian government over some licensing issues, and eventually walked away from the project. So yes, we've bought Capex, which is the same company that Manus was talking to. So I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot of overlap between the Manus projects and our projects.
Okay. Now, are you still targeting 24,000 ounce production per annum? I guess the answer is yes to that.
Nothing's changed. 24,000 ounces per annum out of Kilimapesa is still the target. Absolutely.
Okay. And where are you in terms of production ramp up towards that 6,000 ounces per quarter?
6,000 ounces per quarter is the 24,000 ounces per annum, and the answer is once we've got the funding in place, we fully prepared to pull the button on the expansion project. I mean, the team is in place, the engineering is all done, a large part of the procurement is done. We need the funding to finish paying for everything, move it to site, build it. So yes, we prepared, we're ready to go, but we need to finalize and get the funding in place.
Okay. And can you elaborate on perhaps what's holding the production so far below the target, and how you'll bridge that gap in the coming months or quarters?
I mean, the target is 24,000 ounces, and until we build the expansion project with the current setup, with the current capacity that we have in the mill and through the heap leach, I mean, we won't get to 24,000 ounces unless we build the expansion. Our current target is very much with what we're very much on target with what we've reported for the last quarter. I believe we can improve on that by getting some more tons through the heap leach, but getting to the 24,000 ounces is dependent on us locking in this expansion funding and then building the expansion.
Okay. Now, there's a question here about how much dilution you're expecting as part of the prospectus. Is there any? We talked about non-diluted before. I wonder if you can just confirm.
No, Mark. That once the FCA have approved the prospectus, all of that information will come out in public. I can just assure everybody, it's I'm a significant shareholder, and I want as little as dilution as possible.
Okay. So we'll await the official announcement on that. Yeah. Will you be reverted back to the shares you lost in the mill end situation? I do not know what that actually means, but hopefully you do.
Yes, absolutely. Both Gerard and I, with mill end, we didn't want to put up any of the company's assets or licenses as security. Gerard and I provided the security for Millennium on the money that they provide us with. Obviously, part of the fallout from what happened with OSIM is Millennium had to be repaid, and Gerard and I used a big chunk of shares that we own to repay Millennium, and yes, those shares will be coming back to myself and to Gerard.
Okay. Another question here. When will you report Q2 production? But that's happened this morning, and we've covered that. So that's all good. Also, you're looking to replace the CFO. We have touched on the board seats. I assume you are looking to replace the CFO?
Absolutely. We actually working with, we have a consultant working with us at the moment who's a great candidate. He's done a magnificent job, and I'd really like to consider him for the CFO position. I'm not sure if he'll take it on. We've got another very good candidate who's worked for London-listed companies and ran a Kenya division, the finance side of a Kenya division, property development company out of the UK, who's a potential other candidate. So we're looking for the right candidate. We want to make sure that we get the right person, and we want to make sure that we have the right structure around that person as well, that we have the right support on site. One of the lessons that we learned is we were very underrepresented in the UK. Paul, the previous CFO, spent 90% of his time in Kenya and in Tanzania, and we really should have had him in the UK a lot more, dealing with the brokers, dealing with the auditors and that sort of stuff. So that was an error from the company side. So we carefully looking at at the right CFO for the position, and also where he's going to be based, etc. So yes, it's very high up on our agenda, and we talk about it on a weekly basis.
Okay. So there's a question here on Tanzania. We have covered a little bit of it already, but part of the question that I don't think has been covered, I don't know if you can inform us on this, is how much Capex do you expect is needed to start the initial work into production?
The budget to build the mine in Tanzania at the moment, again, and fully funded by our joint venture partner, will be between $15 and $25 million.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's a few more questions here to get through. What are the plans for restarting underground and tailings operations? We've talked about underground there, depending on finance, but the tailings operations, Robbie?
We won't be restarting the tailings operations. We just won't be doing it. We make more money,
okay,
and it's a lot simpler to run our own mining operations. So no, there's no plan to restart the tailing operations at the moment.
Okay. What monthly production targets do you currently set pre-expansion?
It's the 600 ounces a month. That's our target. 600 ounces a month.
Okay.
So 1,800 a quarter.
1,800 a quarter. Okay. Are you currently completing a pre-feasibility study for Tanzania? And if so, when do you expect this to be completed and shared with the market?
No, we're not doing a pre-feasibility study on Tanzania. If we were doing Tanzania on our own, and the plan, if you go back to the RNSs and our work programs and everything that we presented last year, November, is we would have drilled, if the OSIM funding had gone through, we would have immediately gone back onto site in Tanzania and done a couple of 1,000 meters of drilling to try and expand the resource a bit. And post that, we would have then gone in and done a pre-feasibility study. So no, we're not doing any pre-feasibility study work or any work ourselves on Tanzania. Our potential joint venture partner is doing a lot of work. Okay.
Now, from the expected milestones for 2023 in the April corporate presentation, do you still expect to complete all that was listed there this calendar year?
Yes, we've always maintained, and it still is the case. I mean, you can set your watch to it, I guess, is from the day that we draw down the expansion funding, it's 6 months for us to complete the construction of the expansion project, which gets us to the 24,000 ounces. So I don't have the April 2023 presentation in front of me, but I believe under that presentation we were targeting the end of July to draw the funding down. So that timetable may have slipped because we haven't drawn the funding down as yet, but otherwise everything else is on track.
Okay. What are the big ticket Capex items that funding will be used for?
I'll start at the beginning. We've got about $1.5 million to $2 million worth of infill drilling and exploration to do. Some people might not call that Capex, but we've got some additional drilling and some infill drilling to do on the hill. And that's really just to keep growing in confidence on the hill and to assist and optimize the mining plan. So that's where some of the money will go. Our crushing plant that we have at the moment is too small and just simply not fit for purpose, not even for just processing the tonnage through the mill. And people with mining experience will know. I mean, you've got to get it all starts with the crushing plant. We've got to crush down to the correct size so that we can put the correct size onto the heap for maximum liberation, for maximum recovery of gold. We have to crush down to the correct size to feed the correct size into the mill so we get the correct grind out of the mill so that when we put the material into the CIL, we're getting maximum recoveries. So we've got a really well designed, well thought out new crushing plant, which is big enough to feed both the milling plant, create a big stockpile ahead of the milling plant, and the heap leach. So that's one of the big Capex items. The CIL tanks that we have on site that we inherited from the previous owner are very badly designed. They're very thin and very tall. They should be probably the same height, but we should have a significantly more circumference on those tanks to improve recovery. So there's a new CIL tank farm coming in place. We've got to install a second mill. The mill, we already own the mill. The mill is in Nairobi. It's been sitting in the engineering workshop for a long time now, being refurbished. So we've got to install a second mill. So we've got additional milling capacity, and lots of optimizations around that. The plant is as efficient as we could get it on the funding that we've got, but we need a lot of optimizations around that. We need the recovery. In my mind, I look across the border in Tanzania, I look up into West Africa. We're happy when we're recovering over 80%. We need to be well into the 90s, and all of those extra recoveries are just money that goes straight to the bottom line. We also have a major limitation in our elution and our smelting room. It's old. We really have to treat it very gently and very carefully, and it's just much too small, even for our current production. We battle to elute and refine. We're eluting and refining almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get to the 600 ounces. So the elution plant is just far too small. So we've ordered, and we've got a really smart, nice new elution plant sitting in Johannesburg. We've paid quite a bit of it already. We need the money to finish paying and moving it to site. And then there's infrastructure improvements that need to happen around that. Camp is a bit small for the bigger operation. We need to invest a little bit of money into that. Additional standby power, additional water, some community projects. So that's where the money will go. But it's a very well thought out. We've had a lot of time to optimize that program and make sure that what we're doing with the money.
Indeed, you have had a fair bit of time to make these plans. I'm sure someone was probably taking notes of all those big ticket items, and maybe you can share updates as and when those items arrive and things start taking shape.
Of course.
I have another question. I have a question here. This is on Vim Ruther. Are you working on a feasibility study for Vim Ruther, and will you need to apply for additional mining licenses for that area?
No, not yet. Vim Ruther is still a very exciting prospect for us, but it's early stages. I mean, we've defined the strike length, and it's been a while since I discussed Vim Ruther. So I think we've got somewhere 4.5 to 5 kilometers worth of strike on Vim Ruther that we've trenched. I know we've got a lot of samples sitting at the laboratory in Tanzania that still need to be assayed and reported from Vim Ruther. We put that Vim Ruther announcement out, and again, I don't recall exactly, but we had half a dozen holes or a dozen holes that we had drilled, and we had some great intersections, nice widths, nice grades. And I mean, I go back to last year, and we were talking about Vim Ruther potentially being million ounce, 2 million ounce potential deposit based on the results that we have got to date. We've got a great exploration program that Frank put together on it, and once we've bedded down the Kilimapesa expansion funding and all of that's progressing, Vim Ruther will be a big priority for us again. We think Vim Ruther could be world class and a real game changer for our company, or for Caracal, for our stakeholders and for our shareholders. Will we need a new mining license? No. It would be an amendment to our current mining license. So it wouldn't be a brand new mining license. It would be an amendment or an addition or an extension to our existing mining license.
Okay. I do see another question that pops up. You have mentioned it's early stage and you are awaiting the assays there to be reported. So I assumed, because the question is what kind of grades is Vim Ruther giving, and will this potentially be an open pit operation in the near future? Can you comment at all on that?
Yes, Vim Ruther is not. I mean, Kilimapesa Hill is a bit of an anomaly. It's a big banded iron formation hill. When you come to site, you've got these great big flat plains where the Maasai graze their cows and where everybody lives, and then you've got this banded iron formation, which is Kilimapesa Hill, sticking up in the air, and it's a mineralized banded ironstone formation which we're mining for gold. Vim Ruther is a traditional Tanzanian style project. It'll be an open pit or multiple open pits. And I mean, we've looked at various options on Vim Ruther. I mean, some of the holes around the plant, we good intersections, very close to surface, going 3.5-4 gram a ton over tens of meters. So we've got many options on it. We could in the short term, once we've drilled it out and defined some resources, put a small pit in and complement the current feed from the Kilimapesa Hill with some ore from Vim Ruther and put it through the current plant. But I still maintain, I still believe, and I remember a discussion in the boardroom on site late last year, late the one night, and Rian, myself, Gerard, and Frank were all in the boardroom, and Frank had just presented Vim Ruther to us, and we started to have a look at comparative style projects in West Africa, etc., on how those projects were explored, how long it took them from discovery through to first resource, through to feasibility study, through to production. And if Vim Ruther is as good as what we think it is, it's probably a 4 to 5 year program, but it would be a large standalone Tanzania style mine, a couple of 100,000 ounces per year potential production from it.
Okay. Well, another question I have, this is on, we're coming to the end now of the pre-submitted questions. This is on the governance review. Is the governance review now completed? As part of the governance guidelines on your website's quarterly calls are mentioned multiple times. When will these be started?
We're implementing them.
Okay.
So we had the governance review done by a firm of solicitors in the UK. They had a look at what we're doing, we're implementing them. The governance side is a very serious part of being listed in London on the main board of the London Stock Exchange, and it's all being implemented, and it's something that's an ongoing process. We keep working at it, we keep doing it, but we've fixed the mistakes from the past, and the governance will continue to be an ongoing process all the way through the company's future.
Okay. Well, the final question that I have that was pre-submitted, it's clearly off the back of the Q2 results. I don't know if you've seen it, Robbie. It's I'll read it to you, and hopefully you might need me to read it again. But it says, looking at the total throughput of processing, the mill and heap leach, there was 101,000 grams or 3.2 thousand troy ounces processed, with 1.6 thousand converting to gold sales. Can you explain where the drop is, i.e. recovery rate, left in inventory, etc.?
I'm having a look now. Sorry, I need to just run the numbers just to confirm, because it's a bit of a technical question.
Yes, it's a very technical question.
No, it's fine. I like it. It's good. It makes me think. So we processed 38,543 tons and 2.23 grams per ton. And then the heap leach. Mark, I'm gonna have to come back to you on that. I'll
no problem.
Put out the response. I need to crunch the numbers and go through the information. But it's a great question, and
I'm going to send you that question, so you have it physically in front of you, and then we can just do a quick follow-up when we put this recording out tomorrow. We'll answer that question in the tweet. I appreciate that. That's one that requires a
100%.
little
No
bit of
problem.
thought. I think that covers all the questions that were submitted. One I see coming in, but I think we've covered it, is in terms of power cuts. You're still seeing power cuts, I believe you are. Is the plan to go off grid?
No. I mean, the power
Okay.
the power at Kilimapesa is good, reliable power. It's clean power. It comes from the geothermal power plants further up the Rift Valley. So it's nice, clean power. The availability is not 100%. The availability runs between 70 and 80%, depending if it's the dry season or the wet season. So absolutely. I mean, we'll always have standby power at Kilimapesa. And the one thing that we will look at in the future, once the expansion is built and we've got some money, and maybe it's big enough to attract, we'll look at potentially wind or solar. Every conference I go to, I get approached by people who will come and build you a solar power plant. They'll fund it at their own cost, and then they'll sell you the power through the fence. And if we can get nice, clean power like that to replace the diesel standby power, absolutely, we'll do it. But we'll always be on the grid. The power at Kilimapesa is good. Kenyan government provides good power.
Okay, excellent. One thing that you also need to get ready, I think, when Mr. Musk has it all set up, is of course Starlink. And as soon as that is in possession, then I can make a trip over there, and we can do some coverage from site. But that's something we can.
I believe there's about 1,500 Starlink subscribers in Kenya already. So I'll get somebody to start having a look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, indeed. It'll be very, very good. Okay, that covers all the questions. If anyone wants to type any, I can see one has come in, but if anyone else would like to type any questions, or indeed if you want to ask your question live, I think if you maybe put your hand up, we can then unmute you. Otherwise, just type the question. But one question here that's come in, who provided the recent funding?
So the announcement, it was set out in the announcement. It was through DGWA, who have been big supporters pre-RTO, in the RTO. So DGWA raised the fund those funds for us.
Okay. Another question just popped up. Are we close to settling Millennium?
The settlement of Millennium has got three components to it. There was the first cash component, which is done. We've settled the full portion of the first cash component. There's now a second cash component, which is $600,000, which needs to be paid, and then Millennium have the option on the final amount of money. They can take the final amount in shares or in cash. So yes, I mean at the time where we were with the company, I mean, it wasn't a lot of money that we took off Millennium, that Millennium lent us. Where the company stands now, repaying the money is a lot of money, but we're doing it. We're paying out of cash flow that we generate, and Simon is the one who's dealing with Millennium and negotiating with them, but. For me, now it's just process. They've been paid a substantial amount of money up front. We start working on the second cash component of it now, and they will be settled.
Is there a date that 600 needs to be paid by, Robbie?
I don't recall. Again, I'll let's add that to the questions, and I'll come back on that. I don't have that in front of me now.
Okay. So another question I see. DIGB ESG, that's environmental social governance ratings, are becoming more and more popular for getting serious institutions interested. Do we have any ESG targets? What are they, and what timescales?
Yeah, I mean we're an operating mine. So yes, absolutely, we have a health, safety, ESG department on site. I think it would probably warrant a discussion with some of the guys who work, and the ladies who work in that department, to set out what the targets are, what their programs are for the year, where we're focusing on, and what we're doing. We're a small company with a limited budget, so we don't have in places. We haven't got in place now. are we going to be a completely green gold supply company as yet? No. I mean, what we want to do is get the expansion built. And once the expansion's built, do things like replace the diesel generators with a solar farm, etc. So absolutely, we take it very, very seriously, and we're compliant with all the requirements from the London Stock Exchange under the Companies Act, etc. in London, as well as Kenya and Tanzania where we operate. But going forward, it'll become a bigger focus as well.
Okay, I was going to say yes. When appropriate, we can maybe do an interview on that specifically, because I know that is a very important thing these days to get right.
Absolutely, and I mean, the funders, the companies that we're finalising the funding with at the moment, it's a very, very big component of the funding. So yeah, it's important. It's very important.
Okay. Well, thank you, Robbie. I mean, we're just under an hour, so I think that's a very good time to be doing this Q&A. If there's any final questions from people are saying thank you for being honest with us and doing this interview, Robbie. It's been very useful, all the questions being answered. Thank you very much. So I think we're pretty much good. So again, thank you, Claire, City Girl, for setting this up. I don't know if you want to say bye-bye, or you want to stay in the background. It's entirely up to you. But hello.
Hello. I'm just on speakerphone in the car, so it's a bit difficult to speak. But yeah, thanks everyone. It's been brilliant, really, really good. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very much, Robbie, for your time today, and we'll make sure any of those follow-up questions are put out when we do this recording, which will be out tomorrow actually it's Saturday tomorrow, but we will get out tomorrow morning from Stockbox. So thank you, Robin McRae, CEO of Caracal Gold, and let's not leave it another few months before we do another interview.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to everyone who was on the call. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend, everybody. Cheers.
Yes, everyone have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Good night.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.